The neighbors heard a scream just after midnight, sharp, desperate, and then nothing but the hum of the city outside. When the police arrived minutes later, they were met with a scene that froze even the most seasoned officers. The apartment door was ajar. The air smelled faintly of spilled wine and smoke. In the living room, a half-packed suitcase lay open, clothes scattered as if someone was trying to leave in a hurry. Blood trailed from the kitchen to the sofa, where a young woman lay motionless, her pale hand reaching toward a cell phone that would never ring again. Her name was Rachel Miller, 29 years old, born and raised in Oregon, a nurse who believed love could heal anything. She came to Istanbul chasing what she thought was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of love, the kind you see in movies and read about in books. But by morning, the dream she built was shattered, replaced by the cruel reality of betrayal and death. The police quickly realized this wasn't a break-in or a random act of violence. There were no signs of forced entry, no missing valuables. Whoever did this, Rachel knew them. And maybe she even loved them. As investigators pieced together the fragments of that night, one thing became painfully clear. This wasn't just about jealousy or rage. It was about a secret that should have never been kept. Because the real question was never who killed Rachel Miller. It was why she didn't walk away when she had the chance. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Who is Rachel Miller? To her friends back home in Oregon, she was the kind of woman who made everyone feel seen, kind soft-spoken, the one who always remembered birthdays and stayed on the phone when someone needed to cry. She'd worked long shifts as a nurse, saving just enough to chase her dream of traveling the world. And that dream led her to Istanbul, a city where two continents meet, where history and chaos intertwine, and where she believed her new life was waiting. But love has a way of finding you in the most unexpected places. Rachel met Leyla Arslan, a 27-year-old local artist, known for her bold street murals and quiet intensity. They met at a small cafe near Galata Tower, a chance encounter that quickly became something deeper. The chemistry was undeniable, the connection electric. But there was one problem. Leyla wasn't exactly single. She was engaged to her cousin, Emre, a young businessman from a respected Turkish family. The engagement wasn't built on love, but on family expectations, a bond to preserve tradition. Leyla felt trapped, torn between what her heart wanted and what her family demanded. Rachel didn't see the warning signs at first. She saw only the woman who made her laugh, who brought her tulips every Friday, who painted her portrait with eyes that looked like they'd seen her soul. Friends back home said she sounded happier than ever. But behind those Instagram smiles and romantic captions, cracks were already forming. Because love built on secrets always carries a shadow. So, what really happened that night? What pushed a love story across oceans to end in tragedy inside that small Istanbul apartment? Why did Leyla risk everything for a woman her family could never accept? And why did Rachel stay even when things began to feel unsafe? In some minutes, we'll uncover the truth, how a secret affair crossed borders, tore families apart, and ended in one of the most heartbreaking modern stories of love, loyalty, and loss. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, do you believe love can make people lose control? And if you were in Rachel's shoes, would you have stayed, knowing what you know now? Rachel Carter had always been the kind of woman who believed in second chances. At 29, she'd seen her share of heartbreaks, the kind that leave you sitting by your window at 3 a.m., wondering if love is really meant for everyone. Back home in Portland, Oregon, she'd worked long hours as a nurse in the ER. The job paid the bills, but deep down, she was restless. The noise, the monotony, the endless loop of work and sleep, it all began to blur. So when a travel opportunity came through her hospital's volunteer network, she didn't hesitate. A hospital in Istanbul was short-staffed and looking for skilled nurses. She packed 2 suitcases, said goodbye to everything she knew, and boarded a plane across the Atlantic. To her, it wasn't just a new job, it was a new life. The first few months in Istanbul were quiet. Rachel found peace walking through the old cobblestone streets of Sultanahmet, taking photos of the Bosphorus during sunset, sipping Turkish tea in the local cafes. It was during one of those quiet evenings, scrolling through social media, that a message appeared on her screen. It was from Leyla Aydin, a 26-year-old architecture student who followed Rachel's travel page. "You take the kind of pictures that make me fall in love with my own city again," the message read. Rachel smiled and replied. That one comment turned into a conversation, then into late-night voice messages, and finally, an invitation to meet. Their first meeting was at a small cafe tucked between old bookstores. Leyla arrived wearing a denim jacket splattered with paint, her hair tied loosely, eyes full of energy. Rachel said later that it felt like she'd known her forever. They talked for hours, about art, faith, family, and freedom. Rachel was drawn to Leyla's fire, the way she questioned everything but still found beauty in tradition. Leyla, on the other hand, admired Rachel's courage, a woman who'd left her whole life behind just to start over. That connection grew fast. Too fast. Within weeks, they were inseparable, finding excuses to see each other, stealing moments in quiet parks and crowded bazaars, away from curious eyes. But in Istanbul, secrets don't stay hidden for long. Leyla came from a conservative household, her family well-known and respected. Her cousin, Emre Aydin, was practically the family's backbone. At 28, he ran his father's import business and was known for his loyalty and pride. He and Leyla had grown up together, and in their family's eyes, their engagement was the natural next step. For Emre, it wasn't just an engagement, it was an honor, a duty to continue the family name. But Leyla's heart was elsewhere, caught between love and loyalty, between what she was told to want and what she truly felt. As their affair deepened, Rachel began to understand how fragile their world really was. Every text, every call, every meetup had to be hidden. There were no pictures of them together online, no tags, no public displays of affection. Rachel didn't mind at first. She told herself that love was worth the wait, worth the secrecy. But the cracks began to show when she started noticing Emre's subtle shifts. The way he'd appear unexpectedly at places Leyla mentioned visiting, or how he'd ask her friends casual but pointed questions. Leyla brushed it off, saying he was just protective. Rachel wanted to believe her. She wanted to believe that love could conquer tradition, fear, and expectation. In her private journal, Rachel wrote, "Leyla says it's fine, but sometimes I see the worry in her eyes when her phone rings. I don't know if I should be scared or patient. Maybe both." Still, the two held on to their stolen love, renting a small apartment near Katakoy as their escape from the world. For Rachel, it was home. For Leyla, it was a secret she could barely breathe under. They'd spend evenings cooking, painting, talking about what life could be if things were different. A life without fear, without hiding. But dreams like that don't stay untouched by reality for long. Because one evening, Leyla came home quieter than usual. She avoided Rachel's eyes, her voice trembling as she said, "Emre found out." Rachel froze. "What do you mean he found out?" Leyla whispered, "He saw our messages. He knows everything." Rachel's heart pounded as the weight of that sentence settled in the room. She knew what that meant. Not just the end of their relationship, but the beginning of something dangerous. Leyla promised it would be fine, that she could calm him down, that he just needed time. But deep down, Rachel wasn't convinced. She'd seen the look in Leyla's eyes before, fear disguised as hope. And a few weeks later, that hope would fade for good. In her journal, Rachel wrote one final line before everything changed. "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. Before we move forward, let us know in the comments. Do you think love is worth hiding for? And if you were in Leyla's position, torn between family and the person you love, what would you have done?" It was a Saturday night, calm, warm, and quiet over Istanbul. The streets glowed with golden light reflecting off shop windows, and the faint sound of laughter drifted from nearby cafes. Inside a small apartment in Katakoy, Rachel Carter was setting the table. 2 wine glasses, a bottle half empty, soft jazz playing from her phone. It should have been an ordinary evening, the kind of night couples share when they're trying to forget the world outside. But tonight, something was different. There was tension in the air, thick enough to feel. Leyla Aydin sat by the window, barely touching her drink. Her phone kept lighting up, the same number, over and over again. Emre Aydin. Rachel noticed. "Are you going to answer him?" she asked quietly. Leyla shook her head, whispering, "Not tonight." Her voice trembled as she said it. Rachel tried to smile, but she could feel it. The distance between them had grown into something heavy. She reached out to touch Layla's hand, but Leyla pulled away. "Rachel, you don't understand," she whispered. "He's not going to stop. He's been asking questions about us." Rachel's chest tightened. "You said he'd calm down," she said. Leyla looked at her with tear-filled eyes. "I thought he would, but he's angry. He says I've brought shame on the family. He said if I don't end this, he will." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The music kept playing softly in the background, that haunting kind of jazz that makes silence even louder. Then suddenly, there was a knock on the door. A firm, heavy knock that made both of them jump. Leyla froze. "Don't answer it," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. But Leyla knew that knock. She'd heard it all her life. It was Emre. Rachel tried to stop her, but Leyla moved to the door, unlocking it slowly. "Emre, please," she began, but before she could finish, he pushed the door open. He looked different, pale, tense, his jaw clenched tight. "So this is where you've been hiding," he said, his eyes darting between them. Rachel stepped forward, trying to stay calm. "Emre, please, we can talk." But he cut her off. "You," he said coldly, pointing at Rachel, "you don't belong here." The next few minutes were chaos. Voices overlapped. Rachel tried to reason with him, her tone firm but desperate. Leyla cried, begging him to stop, saying it wasn't what he thought. But Emre wasn't listening. His anger had built for weeks, boiling over into something that couldn't be contained. The argument grew louder, a blur of shouting, glass breaking, the sound of furniture scraping against the floor. Then silence. Just a moment of stillness, the kind that feels endless. Then a single, sharp sound broke it. Not a scream, not a crash, something else. And after that, nothing. When neighbors heard the commotion, they called the police. It took only minutes for officers to arrive, but by the time they broke through the locked door, it was already too late. Rachel Carter was found lying beside the kitchen table, motionless. The half-empty wine glass was shattered beside her. Leyla was on the floor near the window, trembling, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Her face was streaked with tears, her voice breaking as she whispered the same thing over and over. "I didn't mean for this to happen." Emre was gone. His jacket was found by the stairwell. His car was missing. But there were no signs of a struggle beyond the apartment. No witnesses who saw him leave, no footage showing where he went. It was as if he had vanished into the night. The news broke across Istanbul by morning. Headlines read, "American woman found dead in Katakoy apartment. Family connection under investigation." Rachel's friends in Oregon woke to hundreds of notifications, their hearts sinking as they scrolled through the articles. None of them could believe it, not the girl who laughed too loud, who sent postcards from every city she visited, who'd just found what she called the love she'd been waiting for. Meanwhile, police combed through the apartment, collecting fingerprints, photographs, and notes. They found Rachel's journal open on the counter, a sentence circled in pen. "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident." That line changed everything. Detectives began to question whether this was a crime of passion, a family dispute, or something far more complicated. But one thing was clear. The story wasn't as simple as it looked. And just when investigators thought they had it figured out, they checked the building's security footage. What they saw made no sense at all. Before we continue, let us know in the comments what you think really happened in that apartment. Was it an accident, or something planned all along? And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. When dawn broke over Istanbul the morning after the tragedy, the city carried on as if nothing had happened. Ferries crossed the Bosphorus, street vendors called out to passing crowds, and the smell of roasted chestnuts filled the air. But in one corner of Katakoy, behind yellow police tape and curious onlookers, investigators stepped carefully through Rachel Carter's apartment. Now a frozen scene of heartbreak and confusion. Nothing about it made sense. The shattered wine glass, the half-packed suitcase, the silence of a life interrupted. Detective Selim Karaca, leading the investigation, had seen hundreds of domestic disputes. But something about this one was different. There was no clear motive, no straightforward timeline. Rachel's travel bag was open, clothes neatly folded inside. Her passport lay beside it, as if she had been planning to leave. But if she was leaving, why were there two glasses on the table? Why was there music playing? As investigators combed the room, one detail caught their attention: the firearm on the floor, half hidden under the sofa. Two sets of fingerprints were lifted from it, Rachel's and Leyla Aydin's. What was missing, however, was any trace of Emre Aydin. His fingerprints were everywhere else: the doorknob, the kitchen counter, the stair railing, but not on the weapon itself. At the station, the questioning began. Leyla sat in the small, cold room, her hands trembling as she tried to explain. "He came to confront us," she said softly. "We argued. He shouted. I begged him to stop. Rachel tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't listen." Her voice cracked as she continued. He grabbed the gun. I don't know where it came from. Then, there was a sound and Rachel fell. She stopped there, eyes filled with tears, whispering, I didn't pull the trigger, he did. But when police located Emre 2 days later, his version of events was entirely different. Sitting across from detectives, he looked calm, almost composed. I wasn't even in the apartment, he said firmly. Yes, I argued with her earlier that day. But I left before sunset. You can check my phone. I was at my friend's restaurant across town. Investigators did check. His phone's GPS data supported his claim, but there was one problem. Surveillance footage from the apartment's hallway showed a man matching his description entering the building just before midnight. The timestamp? Exactly 10 minutes before the neighbors reported the loud argument. When this footage surfaced, it became the headline everywhere. American woman killed in Istanbul love triangle, cousin denies involvement. International media picked up the story. News outlets in the U.S. aired interviews with Rachel's colleagues, her best friends, and even her parents, who were heartbroken and demanding justice. Rachel believed in love, her mother said tearfully on television. She didn't deserve this. Back in Istanbul, investigators were piecing together Rachel's final hours through her phone. The messages were painful to read, fragments of a relationship unraveling. Asterisk Rachel asterisk, I think he knows. Asterisk Leyla asterisk, please don't leave. I'll fix this. Asterisk Rachel asterisk, I can't live like this, Leyla. I'm scared. Emre, from an unknown number. You're ruining everything. Tonight it ends. That final message, sent at 9:46 p.m., changed the course of the case. It suggested premeditation, not an accident, not a moment of passion, but a plan. Investigators traced the number and confirmed it belonged to a temporary SIM card purchased by Emre just days earlier. Still, there was one hole. There was no video evidence of him leaving the building afterward. It was as though he walked in and simply vanished. Meanwhile, public opinion was split. Some saw Leyla as the victim, trapped between two people she loved in different ways, caught in a web of cultural and emotional conflict. Others accused her of deception, claiming she orchestrated the confrontation that night. The police had no choice but to hold her in custody while they searched for new evidence. Over the next few days, the investigation grew more complex. Crime scene analysts discovered something overlooked during the first sweep. Faint traces of blood on the edge of Rachel's suitcase. It wasn't hers. When tested, it matched Emre's DNA. This discovery raised new questions. Had there been a struggle? Did Rachel fight back? And if so, how did the suitcase become part of the scene? Detective Salim ordered a re-examination of every item Rachel had packed. Her clothes, her documents, her journal. It was during this meticulous search that a small object fell from a folded sweater, a tiny flash drive sealed inside a plastic bag. When plugged into the police computer, it revealed a series of video clips. The first few were harmless, travel vlogs, hospital farewell parties, and clips of Rachel filming the city. But then came one labeled for evidence. In the short, shaky recording, Rachel appeared on camera, her face tired, her voice trembling. If you're watching this, she said softly, then something has happened to me. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending everything is fine. I love Leyla, but I'm scared of what Emre might do. He's been following me. He knows where I live. That single video shifted the investigation entirely. It confirmed Rachel's fear. It established a timeline. And it made it impossible to dismiss the possibility that she had known exactly how dangerous things had become. Still, there was one final mystery. How did Emre's blood end up on her suitcase? If he had fled, he must have been injured. But there was no record of him seeking medical help anywhere in the city. It was like he had vanished off the face of the earth. Then, one afternoon, as investigators prepared to send the suitcase to forensics for another test, they noticed something odd. A false lining at the bottom, barely visible, stitched with unusual care. When they peeled it open, they found something hidden inside. It was small, almost unnoticeable at first. But what they found in that secret compartment would change everything the police thought they knew about that night. Before we reveal what it was, tell us in the comments. Who do you think was responsible? Was it Emre, consumed by anger and pride? Or Leyla, desperate and cornered by fear? And if this story has kept you on the edge, make sure you're subscribed, because what comes next will completely rewrite everything we thought we knew. Detective Salim sat in his office late that night, the rain outside hitting the window in soft, steady rhythm. The discovery of the hidden flash drive had reignited the entire investigation, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. The messages, the blood on the suitcase, the inconsistencies in Emre's alibi, none of it fit together perfectly. Then, as the digital forensics team continued combing through Rachel Carter's cloud backup, one of them called out from the corner of the room. "Sir, you need to see this." It was a recovered audio file, automatically uploaded from Rachel's phone the night of her death. The timestamp read 11:42 p.m., minutes before the neighbors reported hearing the final argument. The recording began faintly, as though Rachel had placed her phone on the counter before things escalated. The sound of clinking glasses, a trembling voice. It was Rachel. "Rachel, you don't need to stay, Leyla. We can leave. We can go somewhere else." "Leyla, he'll find us, Rachel. You don't understand." "Rachel, then let's tell the police. Let's." Her voice was cut off by the sound of the door slamming open. Heavy footsteps. Then another voice, low, controlled, unmistakably male. "Emre Aydin. Emre, you were going to run away? With her? Leyla, please, Emre, stop. Emre, do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" There was shuffling, the sound of something falling, and Rachel's voice again, pleading calm, but shaking. "Rachel, you don't have to do this. Nobody has to get hurt." Then a pause. A long, chilling silence. And finally, a single sharp sound. After that, Emre's voice quiet, broken. "Emre, she made me do it." Detectives froze as the final words echoed through the speakers. The room fell completely silent. In one instant, everything they'd debated for weeks came into focus. The fingerprints, the messages, the false alibi. It all made sense now. The killer had confessed without realizing it, to the one person who could never testify, the victim herself. The following week, the audio became the centerpiece of the trial. The courtroom was packed with journalists, family members, and cameras from around the world. The case had become a global story. The Istanbul affair, love, betrayal, and a hidden confession. As the prosecution played the recording for the first time, the room fell still. Every word, every breath was amplified through the speakers. Rachel's trembling voice filled the courtroom. Then the sound of the door, the confrontation, and that final whisper. By the time the audio ended, several jurors were visibly shaken. One woman in the front row wiped away tears. Leyla Aydin sat motionless at the defense table, her hands clasped tightly. When her turn came to testify, her voice cracked as she said, "I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I loved her. I tried to protect her, but I was too afraid. I thought if I kept quiet, maybe it would stop." Her words trembled under the weight of guilt, regret, and grief. Then it was Emre's turn. His attorney tried to shift the blame, claiming it was a tragic accident, a moment of panic, that the gun had gone off during a struggle. Emre spoke softly, his face pale. "I didn't mean to kill her," he said. "I just wanted to scare her. She pushed me too far." But the jury had already heard the recording. They knew the truth. The words "she made me do it" weren't the voice of a man panicking. They were the voice of someone trying to justify what he had done. Rachel's parents flew in from Oregon for the trial. They sat in the front row every day, holding hands, listening to every testimony, every piece of evidence. Her mother said in an interview later, "We didn't want revenge. We just wanted the truth. We wanted to understand what really happened to our daughter that night." When the verdict was read, the courtroom was completely silent. Emre Aydin was found guilty of second-degree murder. He showed no emotion as the sentence was announced, 25 years in prison. Leyla broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, as the guards led him away. For her, the verdict was both a relief and a reminder that the man who had once been her closest family was now the reason she'd lost everything she loved. Outside the courthouse, as reporters surrounded Rachel's family, her father spoke briefly. "Justice doesn't bring her back, but it tells the world who she really was, someone who loved deeply, who trusted people, and who deserved more than this ending." His voice wavered, but his words struck a chord with millions watching around the world. For the first time, the truth was no longer buried in doubt. The recording had given Rachel her voice one last time, a voice that would not be silenced, even after death. But as the public began to move on, detectives quietly noticed something in the case files that still didn't fit. One detail that no one had questioned yet, something small, hidden in plain sight. Because even with a confession on tape, not everything about that night had been explained. Before we move forward, let us know in the comments. Do you believe justice was truly served? And if you were in Rachel's parents' shoes, could you ever forgive? And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, so you never miss the next part of this story, because what happens next will change everything you thought you knew. After the trial, Istanbul moved slower. The trams still passed through the same narrow streets, the call to prayer still echoed across the rooftops, but something about the city felt quieter, as though it too remembered what happened in that small apartment overlooking the Bosphorus. Rachel Carter's name had vanished from the headlines, but her memory lingered, in whispers, in passing conversations, in the way the light from her apartment window used to spill onto the street. Her belongings were never moved. Her favorite scarf still hung over the back of the chair. A half-finished painting sat on the easel, the brush marks frozen mid-stroke. Some nights, neighbors swore they saw the light flicker on for a moment, as if she had never left. Leyla Aydin rarely spoke after the verdict. Each Sunday, she walked down to the waterfront holding a single white flower. She would stand there for several minutes, watching the tide come in, her reflection trembling in the waves. No one knew what she whispered before she let the flower fall into the sea, but those who passed by said they sometimes heard a name, Rachel. Her eyes no longer carried the spark they once did, only a quiet sorrow that time couldn't seem to erase. The woman who had once believed in love strong enough to defy everything now lived in the shadow of what that love had cost. Emre Aydin disappeared after his sentencing. His family withdrew from the city, selling their business and retreating to the countryside. Rumors said he lived in silence, avoiding people, his voice never heard again outside the courtroom. But one thing remained unburied, the recording that revealed everything. It sat deep in the archives, still echoing with the sound of his trembling voice, those few words that would haunt him forever. She made me do it. Back in Oregon, Rachel's family kept her room just as she left it. Her mother still had the postcard she sent before she died, the one that read, "I think I've finally found home." On Rachel's birthday, her sister would light a candle by the window and whisper, "Find your way back." For them, closure was a word they never believed in. You can bury a body, they say, but you can't bury a story that never found its ending. And maybe that's what this really is, not just a story about crime or passion, but about people. About how love, when hidden behind fear, can destroy more than it protects. Rachel believed love could conquer anything. Leyla believed love could free her from her family's expectations. Emre believed love was something that had to be controlled. But in the end, all three were caught in a single, irreversible moment that changed everything. Sometimes, it's easy to read about stories like this and move on. But imagine being Rachel, far from home, in a city where you barely speak the language, trusting someone completely, only to find out that love can be the most dangerous thing of all. Or imagine being Leyla, torn between the life you were told to live and the one your heart truly wanted. What would you have done in her place? Would you have chosen love, even if it meant losing everything else? Tell me what you think. Was Leyla another victim of circumstance, or did she play a part in the tragedy that night? Do you think justice was truly served? Share your thoughts below. I read every single one. Before you go, make sure to hit the like button, share this story with someone who believes in love, and subscribe so you never miss another real story like this one. Because behind every headline, there's a heartbeat, and behind every tragedy, there's a truth waiting to be told. As the sun sets over Istanbul, the city lights reflecting on the water, Rachel's name fades softly into the night. A reminder that love, even in its most tragic form, leaves behind a story the world will never forget.